Okay, now you got addition, but you don't have common denominators, so you can't extend the line when you have addition without common denominators, okay? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to extend these fraction lines so you have more space. Now you're going to want to put parentheses on the binomials, okay? That's just drop out down the 5x and the 8x. Okay, now neither one of those, that should be obvious to you that neither one of those have GCFs and neither one of them's adopts. Okay, so we're just going to drop those down. Now, if they can be factored, you need to do so from here to here. Okay, and then what you do is you come up with your lowest common denominator. So look at the bottoms. You have a binomial of x plus 2, and you have a binomial of x plus 6. Now you got x plus 2 here, but you don't have it here. You have one factor here, but 0 factors here. You need to get them so they both have 1. So all you do is bring in x plus 2, and then you also got to bring that to the top. Because you're multiplying then by, you're essentially multiplying it by 1. X plus 6, you have 0 here, you have 1 here. So you got to get them both to 1. So you're going to times by x plus 6 here, and times by it here. Okay, now you have your common denominator, so you can extend it, cross out one of them. Okay, so your denominator is going to be x plus 6 and x plus 2. Now you have to simplify the top, so you take 5x times 1x, which is 5x to the second, and then you take 5x times 6, which is 30x, and then plus 8x to the second plus 16x. Well, I can combine like terms with the 5 and the 8. That's going to be 13x to the second. And then combine 30x to 16x. That's 46x. Okay. Now, they're going to want you to factor that. Okay. Now, 36 and 46, the GCF's 1, but you have to do 1x because they both have x. So now that becomes 13x plus 46. Okay, and that's what we're going to put on top. We got 1x and then 13x plus 46. Now I have parentheses, but they're not identical. Okay, and I don't have any outside factors to reduce by either. By the way, if it's 1x, you usually the textbook just has you put it as x. Okay, again, now when you have addition, a subtraction, you're going to make it addition, okay? But then we're going to make that negative and that positive, okay? I might recommend putting a 1 there so I see it. Okay, now I have to come up with the lowest common denominator, so I need to extend the fractions, okay? And I parenthesize the binomials. And usually when you look at this, you're just looking at the bottom, okay? The bottoms are what you look at. Neither one of them they're both binomials, 2 terms. Neither one of them have greatest common factors, and neither one of them are dots, okay? So we'll just leave everything the same. Usually the top, you just drop down. Even if the top could be factored, like this would be a GCF of -1, you usually don't do it, because right now you're just concerned about your common denominator. Okay, so denominators, you have a binomial of x minus 7 in that denominator, and you have a binomial x plus 7 in that one, x minus 7 in the other. Okay, so these can't be factored, so we just drop them down. Okay, so x plus 7, I have one factor there in the denominator, but I don't have any factors there. So I need to raise the second one, so it's got an x plus 7. X minus 7, you have 0, and then 1. So you need to raise that by x minus 7. And now you have a common denominator. Okay, so you can now extend the line. Remember, that's and bring the plus on top. So we'll get rid of one of them because we don't need both of them. It combines into 1 with the denominator. So x plus 7, x minus 7. Okay, so now I'm going to do the FOIL method. 1x times 1x is 1x to the second. 1x times negative 7 is negative 7x. Negative 6x times 6 times 1x is negative 6x. Then negative 6 times negative 7 is plus 42. Now we got to keep going over here, okay? Negative 1x times 1x is negative 1x to the second. Negative 1x times 7 is negative 7x. 6 times 1x is positive 6x. And 6 times 7 is positive 42. Now you combine like terms. 1x squared and negative 1x squared cancel out. They add to 0. Now I got negative 7 minus plus minus negative 7, negative 6, negative 7, positive 6. Okay? So that's going to, when you add those, negative 7 plus negative, here I'll even show you. Negative 7 minus 6 minus 7 plus 6 is negative 14x. So I combine those like terms, and then the only constant I have is 42 plus 42. That's going to be plus 84. Okay, now the expression I ended up with, they want it factored. Now, look at 14. Well, the first factor of 14 is itself. See if 84 is divisible by 14. It is. So the greatest common factor is 14 negative. So negative 14. That becomes 1x, or just x minus 6. Okay? So negative 14, parentheses x minus 6, but I can't cross out anything. Okay? If I actually had an x minus 6 on the bottom, I'd be crossing that out. Okay? Okay, next up. Again, you do not have the common denominator. When you have multiplication, it doesn't matter. Okay, you don't need the common denominator, so you can just go ahead and start factoring. But with addition, you need the common. You can't add two fractions with an uncommon denominator. Extend your lines. Okay, so the tops we just dropped down. Even if they could be factored, I don't really care. I'm just going to have to multiply them anyway, so why would I care? Now, GCF none, DOPS no, GCF no, DOPS no. So you go low LCD. So you got your x plus 6 and your x minus 5. And you'll just drop those down. Now I got to get common denominators. So x plus 6, you got 1 and 0. So I raise that up by a factor of x plus 6. X minus 5, I got 0 and 1. So I raise this bottom one by a factor of x minus 5. Remember, you got to do it on top as well. So now you can do the extension with the plus. Bring your plus to the top and just get rid of one of the denominators, because now it's all 1. So you got x minus 5, x plus 6. Okay, so now I'm going to multiply this out. That's going to be 1x to the second minus 5x. And over here I have to do the FOIL method. 3x times 1x is 3x to the second. 3x times 6 is 18x. 2 times 1x is plus 2x. And then 2 times 6 is plus 12. Okay, so you're going to have 1x to the second. You're going to have 4x to the second. I got to combine those. 4. Okay, x is, we have negative 5 plus 18 plus 2. It's going to be 15x. Then plus 12. Okay, now see if that trinomial factors. 4, 15, and 12 don't have a greatest common factor. Okay, so we go to the t-table. A, B, C. That's going to be 48 positive. So the signs have to be the same, and we're trying to add them to get to 15 positive. 1 and 48, that doesn't make 15. Okay? That doesn't make 15. That's a 26. Negative 26, but it's not 15 of any kind. 3 and 16. It's negative 19, so that won't work. That's negative 16. It's close, but it's not good enough, okay? Remember, I know it's positive over there. I'll just make them both positive. 5's a decimal. Now that adds up to negative 14. Now I'm under 15, so I know that that can't be factored. No, you don't use a quadratic formula, okay? That's when you have to find the x solutions. I'm just going to leave that 4x to the second plus 15x plus 12, and I'm going to put it in parentheses to let everybody know that's a prime factor. Okay, now you don't even have a common denominator here because you got plus. So you extend the lines. Put parentheses around here, just right there. The tops you just drop down. Now the bottom I'll just, that bottom I'll drop down, but I think x squared minus 9 can be factored, okay? So if those bottom denominators can be factored, you need to do so. Like you don't have a greatest common factor, but it's definitely adopts. So I rewrite that as x plus 3 and x minus 3. Okay, now when you're doing your LCD, a new thing comes in. So in your denominators, we have a factor of x plus 3. We also have a factor of x minus 3. And I also have a factor of what is known as outer x, okay? Meaning it's not in parentheses, it's a monomial. So x plus 3, I got 1 here and 0 here. So I raise this one up by a factor of x plus 3. Now they both have 1x plus 3. X minus 3, I have 1 factor there, but 0 here. So I raise that one up by a factor of x minus 3. Then outer x. These are not outer x's. They're in the parentheses. And that you don't count the top. You're just worried about the bottom, the denominator. Okay? So that has 0 factors of outer x in the denominator. This has 1 factor of outer x. So I'm going to need to raise this by a factor of x, okay, and then times x. Now everything's the same. That allows me with the plus to bring it up top and extend the line. So my common denominator is x, x plus 3, x minus 3. Now we got to simplify the top. X times x is x to the second. I'm going to go put a 1 there. Now this is how I multiply this out. First I distribute 5 to x, which would be 5x, and then 5 to 3, which is 15. Okay, and then you do the FOIL method with the 5x plus 15 and the 1x minus 3. So 5x times 1x is 5x squared. 5x times negative 3 is negative 15x. 15 times 1x is positive 15x. And then 15 times negative 3 is negative 45. So our x to the second power is you're going to have 6x to the second power. Negative 15 plus 15 is 0, and then minus 45. Now see if that binomial factors. The greatest common factor. Okay, 6 and 45. Well, 45 isn't divisible by 6. Maybe it is by 3 or something. Yeah, it is. So we need to factor out a 3. And that's 2x to the second power minus 15. Now, the x to the second's there, but 2 and 15 are not perfect squares, so I don't take it down to a difference of perfect squares. Okay, that's what I roll with. I put 3, then 2x squared minus 15. Now, you don't have any common parentheses to cross out. Outer factors, you got 3 and x, but you can't really simplify 3 over x. If that instead of x, if that would be like a 6, I would reduce it to 1 over 2. Okay, but it's not. So that is my answer.